In Caffe Sospeso, we have a peculiar way of seeking out our green coffee, where we get involved in every part of the process in order to obtain only extraordinary coffee, and to be able to share unforgettable experience with you. Let's see what my job as a coffee hunter is, and how we involve ourselves in this wonderful process. This is the coffee bean we all know. What many don't know is that comes from a fruit, which is cut, pulp, washed, dry, stored, and sometimes mixed with coffee beans from nearby farms in a cooperative, and then sold at the stock exchange, transported, roasted, and distributed so that you can consume it. Some have certification, others don't, but the certifications do not ensure it's a quality bean.
This is where the work of the coffee hunter begins. He travels around the world visiting coffee farms looking for certain qualities in beans and the way they are processed. Often there are certain characteristics others look out for, but the coffee beans we search for are much more specific and complex. These beans we're looking for are extraordinary and are found in less than 5% of the world coffee production. They reveal an expression of flavors and aroma that is very difficult to achieve. Let's see why.
Remember that the bean is a fruit? Well, the coffee hunter needs to inspect the conditions under which the fruit grew, so we must go back in time to when the seed was planted. We have to ensure that the plant grew in a greenhouse for 18 months before it was planted in the soil in which it will grow for the rest of its life, because this ensures a healthy plant. You need to check if the land has the necessary qualities for a plant development and that there aren't too many on this farm, so as to not overpopulate the land, and always taking care that they are of the same variety. Analyzing the climate is very important, as well as the altitude, humidity, rain, solar radiation, shade, and wind, given that they're factors that affect or benefit the development of the plant.
Now that we're sure that the farm meets all these characteristics, let's talk about the fruit. When it's cutting season, the coffee hunter must ensure that only the red fruit is cut from the tree, and that those that have not yet matured are left, for them to be cut when they are ready. This requires twice as much effort on behalf of the producer, but it ensures that the fruit is at its peak stage when cut. Once cut, it begins to ferment, and this is why it should be cooled in cisterns to slow the process.
There are different ways to extract the seed from the fruit, like the washing process, natural, and dill-en-basa, to name a few. Let's discuss the most common one, the washing process. After cutting, the fruit starts to be pulped, and this phase we must be careful to not crush or mistreat the beans, as it is very easy to damage them in the process. Afterward, they're washed in special waterways, where some of the pulp that is still embedded in the seed will be detached. Then the beans are passed to a cistern, where they are fermented in a controlled manner to regulate the acidity and sweetness. Then they are sun-dried, where they should be in constant motion so that they don't generate mildew, and at night is sheltered to avoid contact with the evening breeze. This process must be repeated for 2 to 3 weeks.
Once dried, the truly impressive part begins, which is the manual selection, where each bean is separated manually to eliminate deformations and defects in beans, and to keep only the best selection. In this phase, the coffee bean has suffered a lot of stress, so it's time to let it rest for 2 months in a ventilated warehouse with high ceilings to the minimal altitude of 1,000 meters above sea level. Because the wonderful thing about this is that the embryo of the bean is still alive. If it meets all these requirements, the coffee hunter makes a direct purchase with the producer, and thanks to the effort and quality, a higher price than stock is paid, in order for him to improve his lifestyle and his farm, besides receiving advice from the coffee hunter to achieve better coffee crops each year.
After the bean is rested, bagging and packaging begins. The coffee hunter must ensure that within the jug sack there's a special gasket to seal and isolate the coffee beans from the external factors that can harm them. Then they are transported. Here is where the coffee hunter makes sure that during the trip, the coffee beans always travel in the center of the container. That way, by not having any contact with the walls, changes in temperature are not as severe for the beans.
Let's talk about science and technology. Upon receiving the beans, they go to our laboratory where their size, density, humidity, variety, and many other factors are analyzed to determine the best way to roast them. Each variety is different, and with the Caffe Lab result, we roast coffee beans in the best way for that specific kind and ensure that its odors and flavors are its peak. Afterwards, the coffee is evaluated by rating 10 variables, including flavor, aroma, sweetness, acidity, body, and aftertaste, to name a few. This results in an overall rating where 100 is the maximum. This method is very objective and used to sell coffee in the stock exchange because it's the second best-selling commodity after the oil.
Finally, it reaches our brew bar, which is a platform where we expose these extraordinary beans. They are prepared by professional baristas with different methods to highlight the unique characteristics of each variety. Strangely enough, these well-kept coffees have an extremely rare sweetness and flavor, and we are so confident in their flavor that we expose them without sugar or milk.
The objective of this process is that you may have a totally different and unique sensory experience with an extraordinary coffee, where you will also know exactly what the variety of the beans is, which is responsible for contributing more than 50% of the flavor, as well as who was the producer, the name of the farm, and from where in the world this special bean comes from, so you can repeat this experience over and over again. Extraordinary coffee beans, only in Caffe Sospeso.